only ever buy a business with an existing management team. In this video, I'll talk about why you only want to ever buy a business with an existing management team, which is independent from the owner. Now, this is a really, really important topic which first-time acquirers get wrong all the time. And I made this mistake myself personally. Now, when you buy a business, especially if you're buying a small business, a business which is generating less than 10 million in revenue, then the owner is always going to be, or most of the time, they're going to be involved in the business. There are some exceptions to the rule, but most of the time, the owner will be involved in the business in some shape or form. Now, what you want to do is you want to ensure that when you acquire a business, then the owner is not involved in two ways of the business, two main ways. The first one is the owner should not be involved in generating the sales of the business. And this is the number one strict rule. If the owner is, especially if they're the best salesperson, if they're generating the most amount of revenue for the business, that is a no-go. You should automatically dismiss that business, because all of the customer relationships, or the main customer relationships, will be with the owner themselves. So when you buy that business, and if the owner departs, because ultimately they will depart one day, even if it's not straight away, and I'd always advise to exit the owners as soon as possible. There are some cases which you can keep them for some time, but they will exit at some point. Then the customers could possibly leave with them, especially if, for example, you don't get the confidentiality rules and the non-competes done correctly in the agreements. So the sales relationships need to be with other people other than the owner themselves. So that's the number one and the most important. So if you see a business and the owner is involved in the sales relationships and the customer relationships, just say, thank you very much, I'm not interested, and move on to another business. The second way is the overall management of the business, meaning the day-to-day, not the overall, the day-to-day management of the business. Now, you can actually pull it off where the owner is the day-to-day manager of the business, but it's always going to be harder post-acquisition. So when they're involved in the day-to-day management of the business, then all of the staff members are always looking to the owner. What is the owner going to tell me what to do? And also, especially in small businesses, it's almost like it's a owner-centric way of managing. So everything's always about the owner themselves and never about the processes. This is a topic for another video. Again, a business should be about the job roles and the processes to enable the business to run, not about the owner themselves or any individual. As soon as you find yourself that a business is about individuals more than the job roles themselves, then that's always going to be a danger zone, because as soon as those individuals leave or something happens with those individuals, the business productivity normally declines. But if everything's about the job roles, and if it's about the positions and the responsibilities of those positions, then it doesn't matter who you put into those positions, that the business still continues to run. So therefore, if it's got existing management in place at the moment, then it's always going to be easier to have that post-acquisition integration time to ensure that the day-to-day management is running. Now, they can be the overall manager, but they can't be the day-to-day manager, meaning the owner. Because the overall manager is just doing a few things to ensure that the business is ticking over, and you can actually either do that yourself, or you can hire a COO level person to do the overall management of the businesses that you buy. But day to day, your COO is not going to be there. You're going to be hiring a general manager for that purpose. But if there's already a general manager in place, then it makes life much easier. So there's two things that the owner can't be doing. Number one, the sales, and number two, the day-to-day management of the business. When you have that in place and you can see, right, there's always there's management in place and the sales are not being generated by the owner, definitely go ahead with that acquisition as a potential opportunity. It doesn't mean that you have to buy that business, but it now becomes a potential opportunity. Why? Because you know that the sales relationships and the customer relationships are going to continue post-acquisition because they're not held with the owner, and also the day-to-day management will continue post-acquisition. Why? Because they're not held with the owner. Now, if they're involved with the administration, no problem, because you can hire an administrator. It's an easy role to fill. If they're involved in the recruitment, no problem. It's an easy role to fill. If they're maybe, for example, involved in the bookkeeping, no problem. It's easy to get a bookkeeper, and it's easy to fulfill that that role very easily. So they're not a problem, but it's the sales and the day-to-day management. If you want to find out more about how to buy businesses, continue to watch videos on this channel.